So the cosmological argument is a kind of argument. When someone says that they're giving you a cosmological argument, you don't exactly know what the premises or the reasons are, but you do know that the conclusion is that God exists, and you do know that the premises or the reasons are going to concern something about the cosmos. The cosmo in cosmological is talking about the things that exist in space and time, in the universe, in the natural world. So let's look at 3 different kinds or examples of cosmological arguments. So this is an instance of a cosmological argument. So is this, and so is this. We're going to look at all 3. This one's made famous by Thomas Aquinas, and it goes like this. God's not moving himself. God is moving everything else. You cannot have an infinite regress of movement. So it's like, this thing's moving. What moved it? Well, this other thing. What moved that? And what moved that? And what moved that? And what moved that? Somewhere you have to stop. And when we stop, we're going to say, ooh, and that's God. God is the cause of all of the things in motion, and nothing moved God. And God didn't move himself. God is the unmoved mover. So we're proving that God exists, but what we're also doing is explaining all of the motion in the natural world with God. So what we're doing is giving a cosmological argument for the things that exist, what exists, motion exists, and what is the explanation of the motion that exists? God. So God must exist. That's how we get to the conclusion that God exists. Here is the same method of argument, the same conclusion, but a different set of premises. And this one is all about causes. So what we said about motion, we're about to say about cause. So here's this argument. Everything that begins must have something that caused its beginning. An infinite regress is impossible. The infinite regress is when you say, like, well, what caused it? This other thing. And what caused that? This other thing. And what caused that? This other thing. You cannot keep going. Eventually, there's a stopping point. Eventually, there's an uncaused causer, and that's going to be God. So God is not only called the unmoved mover, but God is also called the uncaused causer. So we're explaining the universe. Things are caused. There's cause and effect. And when we want to know what is the ultimate cause, we say, well, that's God. Call God the ultimate reason why the universe involves cause and effect, and God is the reason why the universe includes motion. Here is a third argument, same method. We are going to explain things in the universe, same conclusion. We're going to use God to explain things in the universe, and so the conclusion of all of the cosmological arguments for the existence of God is that God exists, and they all use the same kind of reasoning. Here's the third example I'll give you. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. There can be no scientific explanation for the universe, and you might be thinking, like, why not? Because if we're trying to explain science, you can't use science to explain science. We need an independent explanation for the thing we're trying to explain, right? So the independent thing could be God, because we say God, by definition, is outside of time. God is outside of space. God is outside of the natural world. And so God, could be used as an explanation for science, because he's the causer of science. And that's what this argument is doing. There can be no scientific explanation for science or for the universe, so the cause or the explanation must be this non-natural thing. Call that God. God is called a non-natural thing. By natural, we mean in the physical world. So William Craig's kind of example, and Thomas Aquinas' kind of example, and Al-Ghazali's kind of example are all 3 instances of this type of way to argue that God exists, which is called the cosmological argument. You are giving an explanation for what exists, and the explanation must be God, and so God must exist.